Still King, Kollegah's final album, comes just 10 years after the release of his most commercially successful album, King, in 2014. The album, however, could have easily had two names, the second one being Magnum OPUS. A Magnum Opus is a work on a large scale, often reflecting a lifetime of work. It may take decades or even centuries for such a work to come to light. Looking at Kollegah's discography, we can separate his more than 20 albums and EPs into eras, which over the years evolved the Kollegah identity, as we can see here on the timeline, with his early years grounded in the Zuhälter boss image, followed by a more real talk and introspection image of Felix, ending with the portrayal of global power, wealth, and wisdom in what we call the Weltmonarch. When visualizing what, in my opinion, this album is all about, Kollegah's magnum opus, I think the pyramid timeline works best. Throughout this video, we're going to use one of these three elements, music, text, or theme, to highlight the connection from track to era in order to visualize the magnum opus. I will also rate each song like a normal review would. But before we start, this video took an incredible amount of time and energy. It would make me really happy if you do like this video, smash the like button. And if you think I missed something, please let me know down below. Let's get started. Magnum Opus. The album opens with a strong cinematic sequence of fast strings as he opens with his famous impliziert, dass der Boss ist ein letztes Mal back. The choir is heavily and divine, referencing his God-given talent represented in lines like this. Aggressive drums pairing nicely with lines like this. While the song is basically the title track, in my opinion, and serves as an intro that is not as strong as previous albums or as he typically would come out with an intro, I would say flow and sound are 3 out of 5 for me, and rhyming and theme are perfect. Track 2, we have Sigma, which is a nod back to King 2014's intro, Alpha. Alpha traditionally meaning the beginning. Much of what King's 2014 Real Talk album was meant to do in recapping his early years also means the best. We now have Sigma, which in today's culture is meant to embody all the traits an alpha male would. Successful, pack leader, dominant, but with more humility. We can see examples of this in one of my favorite lines, packed with a crazy 6-syllable rhyme scheme. We also have some insane wordplays, and of course a closing identical to Alta, stating his name, however for the first time in its entirety. Also, there's an Easter egg in the video. Did you guys find it? All in all, as the first track on the album that follows up on a previous track on 2014's King, this song really does a lot for me. I mean, it flows great, rhyming is amazing, sound is cool, it follows the same script, and thematically, it works really well. So, 5 stars across the board. And now we have track number 3, Still King. This nods back to King 2014 title track, arguably one of the best songs of the album back then, and I really like this song from a sound standpoint. Some of the best lines include lines like this. I feel like the sound could have been a little bit better in terms of like echoing and mirroring, just like the Sigma did to Alpha, and the hook I'm not overall that crazy about. However, everything else is really good. I still like this song, and the flow and rhyming is just, again, insane. So really enjoyed this. 4 out of 5 stars. Now we have track number 4, High Roller, the obvious sequel to Flight Mode. From a musical standpoint, you can hear the beat is pretty much one for one, and I think his flow really stands out here, especially across the whole album. Some of my favorite lines look like this. Part 2 is particularly excellent with the rhymes, like Halt die Augen auf wie Ritalin, weil ein King Empire ist nicht aufgebaut mit Sympathien. Both verses are solid, and the hook is nice and fits into the theme really nicely. And now we have Boss für immer. This track, unlike the first 3, doesn't directly follow up King 2014. However, it features lines like this, referencing Zuhälter Tape 4, Murder. And, of course, lines like this. It's, again, a very good song with excellent rhyming and flow, and I don't think the hook is particularly amazing, and for that, I'm going to say 4 out of 5 stars. But I would like to add that the last line on High Roller mentioned Boss für immer and transitioned really well into this track titled Boss für immer. Okay, now we are talking larger than life. This may be one of his most legendary tracks when considering punchlines, I can't help but hear the strings and beat sounding very similar to Alpha from Alpha 2, which also was very much a punchline Gewitter. I mean, lines like the Visi on Air, the Lil Wayne by Radio freestyle, is absolutely insane wordplay. And then, of course, this freaking line with Brandon Stark, man, with the Thron ausklingen. I mean, just being able to understand these lines, I am so grateful. This is mind-blowing. It's just expert level rap and wordplay. And now this brings us to Cold Case, starting with an unexpected Shindy diss with a hilarious line about boxing his teeth out. I mean, why is that unexpected? I shouldn't be surprised by now. It's a real highlights really, include this Ich komm mit Haley, this Slim Shady. Kollegah has no shortage of helicopter lines from both Zuhälter Tape 4 and 5. If you know, you know. And then, of course, this absolute insane rhyme scheme here. The hook, again, is not quite my thing, but it's grown on me with time. Overall, it's a pretty solid song. Flow and the rhyming is again, unbelievable, and thematically works really well. And now we have Kanzler Aura in a saga of songs that includes multiple tracks on former albums, ending with Aura. Historically, these were always expected, much like the first Boss Aura, to bring insane punchlines. However, you may have been maybe slightly disappointed to not get that here. What we did get is what, in my opinion, one of my favorite beats of the album, as well as flow that charts this song as one of my favorite tracks, demonstrated in lines like this. I think the aggressive and almost powerful undertones of the music just make this an awesome sounding song for me. Rhyming is amazing. Flow is amazing. He's got really good pacing. And again, the Kanzler Aura fits really into the Weltmonarch image that he's trying to portray, in my opinion, in the last 5 years or so. So the song's really good. 5 stars all around. That brings us to Der Blonde Don. This track is the first dip in quality in the album, in my opinion. The hook is just not great, and I don't think flow, especially in the first part, is as smooth from line to line as the other tracks on the album. Part 2 makes a good effort with the fast, smooth lines like this. I don't hate this song, but I find myself, when listening from start to finish this album, skipping Blonde Dawn. And as you can see, my stars here reflect that. El Rey del Mundo Serenade. Mit der Blonde Dawn hinter uns, der absolute Weltmonarch ist am Start. Referencing the legendary skit from Alpha Gainer. This entire song follows the absolute Weltmonarch and his old dealer as they cruise the streets in den Roy's. The punchlines are never-ending, packed with humor, and probably the most laid-back, effortless display of rap mastery you can find in the entire rap genre. This beat is so much fun, and rhyming is off the charts. Honestly, I gotta say 5 out of 5 all around, and probably top 3 track on the album for me. 4 Seasons, much like Kanzler Aura, 4 Seasons brings to end a common track theme on previous albums, using seasons to open up deeper topics and struggle, pain, and perseverance. I like the idea that through life we go through seasons, and Kollegah really emphasizes his ability to come out on top no matter what, with a beautiful scratching sample including all of the former Winter, Sommer, Frühling und Herbst tracks. This song is really, really nice to me. I like how it kind of just ties all the loose ends. However, the sound, I feel like it could get boring eventually. It's not like as exciting as the other ones. And so for that, I would say like 4 out of 5 stars for this song as a whole. That brings us to Bless, one of the more popular songs in the Still King promo phase. For understandable reasons, Bless has a really nice melancholy tone. His cola reflects on the good times he had early in his long career, overall exemplifying a positive attitude whilst reliving the self-made days with Fave, who comes in late in the track as a surprise feature. I love this line, especially with the chia on the end, something rappers like Fat Joe, The Game, and other American rappers used to do a lot circa 2002, 2007. This song is pretty much perfect if you're looking for a chill, laid-back, true hip-hop track. One of my favorite car songs right now. Verbrannte Erde, I can't help but hear Millennium in the piano sample on this beat. I'm not sure what that means, but Verbrannte Erde has more sick lines and a smooth flow from start to finish. If it weren't for lines like these, I do think this song musically and just overall atmosphere is bordering on a little bit boring. But then again, the lines and just the overall rapping itself, I mean, it's still good, you know. It's like all of these songs are really, really good, in my opinion, and I have to be picky here sometimes. And that now brings us to Triumphlächeln, seemingly a sequel to Imperator's Siegerlächeln. The slow build to this song with quick pace opening lines that make this a surprising favorite for me, especially the hook. I think it is such an, as you guys would say, ohrwurm. The song, I think, serves as a nice transition to what is the last third, more serious side of the album. This Hover line and the Katamaran wordplay is so sick, and again, it reminds me a little bit from Alpha, where he says, Ich wache den nächsten Tag mit ein Kater, so wie Beyoncé knows. So really cool overall, solid song. Now, as the album begins to climax, we arrive at Go, this song. As a Kollegah fan, has many emotional elements and really is a nail in the coffin as the Boss kommt zum Schluss. Themes like family and real friends like Fave, Asha are emphasized, and his overall legacy being a larger purpose above himself. Highlights include lines like this, referencing his throwing of the Echo Awards into a swimming pool with Farid back in the day. And honestly, I think the hook just works really, really well. Brings the message home, and sound-wise, it's really, really good. Much like Das Licht from Boss Aura, Infinitum, and Boss Move, Mama is a song dedicated to the most important woman in his life. His last love letter of a song for his mom. It's not one I really would listen to often, but his purpose is really undeniable and earns my respect. I like the emphasis of how his career brought him apart from his mom, and how he seems to be happy to lift the weight from his shoulders and dedicate all of his sacrifice back to his mom. Du bist King, the obvious sequel to Du bist Boss. Du bist King is more of a motivational song, obviously. I personally like Du bist Boss. Overall, I think this is just a better song, but I do feel like the repetitive line structuring is an older style that doesn't really hold up, in my opinion, with the exception to Stress from Asha. But I respect the historical significance of the song and the motivational aspect that serves to inspire his younger listeners with lines like this. And to state again, I understand the purpose of this song. However, I mean, rhyming and sound, again, it just doesn't really do it for me, and so that's reflected here in my stars. Halbmondsicher is one of my favorite songs on the album, and the third in the trilogy after Mondfinsternis and Sonnenfinsternis. I appreciate the double time, reminiscent of its predecessors. The hook, which is 1-to-1 Pitbulls and AKs, one of his most legendary songs, and the outro sampling every Kollegah era, absolute Gänsehaut. I think this song actually serves as a pre-outro, as it kind of goes over all of the eras in the outro of this song, and really sets everything up nicely for the next one. Prime. Upon my first listen, I have to say I was very disappointed at first, as much like the intro, Kolleggah's outros are historical and legendary. This outro was not that, due to the fact that the real talk theme of this album deserves an ending that ties up all of the loose ends, not only from this album, but from his entire career. I recognize that, and it's totally fine. As is Mama, Boss Move, and Infinitum were dedicated to the most important women in his life. This song is dedicated to the fans, and to hear his inner struggle around burnout with lines like this is especially touching, and I really, really appreciate it as a proper career-ending outro, and quite honestly, I think it really has a good place here. So, in conclusion, with everything we discussed here, I have totaled all of my stars, and I've landed on a 4.6 out of 5. And in my opinion, this doesn't surprise me, because after listening to this album many times, it is nearly a perfect album. If you were to ask somebody to make an album to culminate 20 years of hit after non-stop, relentless, amazing music, you would hope for something like this. And it's not just that, because routinely throughout every single song, as we annotated, you can see references to past works, all of his catchphrases, famous lines, famous themes, and it really brings into the perspective, and for me, allows me to make the argument that Kollegah is not only ein echter G, but a genius. What I really wanted to do for you guys is put that on full display here and try to highlight as best as I can and do justice for this album and show you truly the magnum opus that Kollegah has just created for us. Have a look.